Week 2 of the NFL season is already in the books, and Joe and I are here to talk about winners and losers from Week 2.
Hike!
All right, so starting with the winners, Joe, who is your first stud from Week 2?
Yeah, my first stud from week 2, is coming from the Thursday night game, and that's quarterback Kirk Cousins. I was impressed by Kirk's performance on Thursday night. He was 31 of 44 for 364 yards and 4 touchdowns. No picks, but he did have a fumble lost. I don't know about you, but I was coming into this game and kind of expecting what we saw out of him last year, same week 2 on the road against the Philadelphia Eagles, and that defense was able to stifle the Vikings offense last year, but different story this year. And he actually performed well. Didn't perform like the typical primetime Kirk like we're used to seeing. And Kirk Cousins is on pace for 6,000 passing yards at this point, and I don't see any signs of him slowing down next week versus the Chargers.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get 6,000 passing yards on
either.
the year, but I will say I agree with you. I mean, it's notorious that Kirk does not do well in primetime. So I thought that your call, during our Thursday night live start sit and saying that you thought he could not do well, I thought it made total sense. Eagles have one of the best defenses in the league. So for Kirk Cousins to have done that to them, I was quite surprised. So, maybe Kirk Cousins is getting to the point where he's matchup proof. I don't know, because I can't think of a better defense than Philly. Maybe Dallas at this point in the NFC, or San Francisco. But he's got weapons. He's got Hawkinson. He's got Jefferson. Addison is, really playing well, to Dustin's chagrin. So I think overall, you got to keep rolling with Kirk, I suppose.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the main difference from last year to this year in this game, I think it was TJ Hawkinson and what he unlocked in the middle of the field. Obviously, the Eagles don't have as strong as a safety group, and their linebacking core lost a lot of guys as well, and they took advantage of the middle of the field with Hawkinson.
I do think too, one other thing to note is, and I don't know this for sure. I'd have to look specifically in the box score, but my hunch is they're throwing a lot more too. Dalvin Cook is no longer there. They've got Madison, but they're not really devoting anything to the run. This is, they're throwing 75% of the time, it feels like.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do so far with the matchups. They haven't had very good matchups via the run. I believe Madison only had like 8 attempts on Thursday night, but they faced the Buccaneers in week 1. We saw them, really stifle the Bears running attack as well. And then, they had to play Philly on Thursday night. So 2 good defensive lines. I'll be curious to see how they can do against the Chargers, with the run game. Can Madison get going, or are we in for more disappointment for Madison?
Yeah, so my stud number 1 for week 2, how could it not be wide receiver Puka Nacua? This guy has been on an absolute tear. He had a whopping 20 targets, 15 receptions, and 147 receiving yards. Over the past 2 weeks, you're talking about a 39.5% target share percentage. That's just ridiculous. If you watch this game at all, you'll know that Puka broke a record for the most receptions by any receiver in the NFL for their first 2 career games. Now, Puka Nacua was a 5th-round pick out of BYU. He had a 40-yard dash time of 4.56, which led him to drop in the NFL draft. I knew who he was, and we had talked about him, I believe, Joe. I thought he had some interest. I saw the path of him being relevant, but I didn't think he'd be this relevant. Stafford has now thrown for 38 attempts and 55 attempts over the past 2 games, which right now leads the league with 93 passing attempts. So if this continues, I can't see why Puka's production won't continue. My only question to you, Joe, is the other person. There was 5 people that they listed on that list as far as career receptions in the first 2 games, and one of those was Kiki Kute. Is he just another Kiki Kute, or should we expect that Puka is just going to continue to keep rolling here?
Yeah, I don't think this guy is, Kiki QT here. I think Nacua, man, I think he's the real deal. He's really showing it. I paid up for him and didn't have the guts to start him. I was concerned with that injury he had coming back from, and then also playing the 49ers defense. But this was the real true test to me, and I'm going to be starting him from here on out. I trust the guy.
Wow.
The only thing that's going to possibly slow him down is Cooper Cup coming back, but at this point, we're not sure when that's going to be.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing, right? Because Cooper Cup is a target hog. So, I mean, could they both be support? I mean, I'm shocked by this Rams teams overall. I got to give a lot of credit to Sean McVay. I have been one to say he's overrated. They try to pump him up. I thought this Rams team was going to be horrible. But Stafford, too, I mean, he looks like a new man out there. I mean, the way that Tutu Atwell and Puka Nakua are playing right now, I did not see the level of production that they've been able to produce. So I'm really, really impressed by them. I actually heard I forgot who it was. I think it might have been Underdog, but someone was saying it basically is like a Robert Woods clone is what Puka Nacua has basically become. So, I mean, I don't think that Cooper Cup style of play will necessarily take Puka out of the game plan. Maybe he'll get a little less targets, but he still can be very relevant.
Yeah, I think he could still be relevant as well. It's just amazing. He's really just taken that Cooper Cup role as far as who has, he has the, um, complete focus of Matthew Stafford at this point, like Cooper Cup would in this offense. I mean, they're not even really targeting Tyler Higbee to my surprise. And, like you, I thought the Rams could be a sneaky team this year, but they've even exceeded my expectations. The offensive line seems better. And even though I don't really know many people on the defensive side, they aren't terrible on that side of the ball either.
Real quick, do you think it's a Stafford thing? I mean, Stafford hyper targeted Megatron. He's hyper targeted Cup. He's hyper targeted Nakua now. Do you think it's just the way Stafford plays?
It definitely could be. I mean, and for fantasy owners, you got to love it because it's like if it's not broke, why fix it? Why go elsewhere? And honestly, it's like, do I really want to throw to Van Jefferson? No. Why not just
Mm-hmm.
keep throwing it to Puka? Alrighty. So my next stud for week 2 is wide receiver Mike Evans. He caught 6 of 8 targets this week for 171 yards and a touchdown. I was very skeptical of Mike Evans. I don't really have him on any of my rosters. I really didn't trust Baker to make him fantasy relevant this year, but so far, that's really been wrong. Through 2 weeks, he's caught 12 of 18 targets for 237 yards and 2 touchdowns. And, Evans is well on his way to keep that 1,000 yard streak going that he currently has. And, so far I heard that he was potentially quarterback proof, but after 2 weeks here, I'm more so starting to believe it because this is the first time we've really seen Baker Mayfield be able to support a wide receiver one like this.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I definitely got this one wrong. A part of me, as it got closer, thought it could be a possibility, but I didn't think Baker could do this. I really don't. It wasn't ever Mike Evans. I mean, we've seen Mike Evans do it
Right.
time and time again. It was just could Baker support him? And Baker, man, I mean, this is probably the best we've ever seen Baker Mayfield play. I still am not ready to crown him, but obviously he's done really, really well, and so as a result, my thought was if you got Mike Evans, the hope was maybe he could trade at the deadline to some really good team, but at this point, Buccaneers are 2-0, could possibly be looking at the division, winner, champion. So he's not probably going anywhere. And I could see him being a Buck for life. I mean, they were talking about a contract extension. Maybe he's like, I'm going to show you and do even better. So, I don't know. I'm with you, though. I can't see why he's going to slow down at this point. Actually, one other thing, though. He played like what we talked about about speed trading last time when we were talking about Mike Evans. They played the Minnesota Vikings last week, which is one of the worst secondaries in the NFL. And then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers played the Bears. And the Bears secondary is probably one of the worst secondaries as well, with Eddie Jackson going out of that game on top of that. So what's it going to look like with a little bit of a better defense? Both defenses, I think, are probably two of the worst in the league. So it'll be a little bit more interesting to see what happens next week because I think they have a more difficult opponent.
Yeah, it definitely will be. Um, you still got to face the guys that teams that you got to face can't change that. But the fact that Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield has been able to take advantage of these, juicy matchups is something that I really had my doubts on if Baker could actually do that. But he's actually been, to my surprise, looking pretty good so far.
Yeah, next week the true test will be Philadelphia Eagles. They play them next week. That's going to be a much more. No, I mean, obviously Kirk did pretty well against them, but you got Darius Slay and James Bradbury is healthy. I mean, those are one of the better corners in the league.
Yeah, and also, I mean, Kirk is definitely a step ahead of Baker Mayfield, but it'll be interesting to see if he just doesn't, keep throwing it up to Mike Evans, and Mike Evans keeps making plays.
So my second stud is running back DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift received the opportunity we've all been waiting for him to have after Kenneth Gainwell was ruled out for the game. After receiving only one rushing attempt for 3 yards in his first game as an Eagle, he had 28 attempts, 175 rushing yards, and a touchdown on 57 snaps with a 6.3 average yard per carry. The biggest question with Swift has always been, can he stay healthy? Now he's got the opportunity with the Eagles. Can he keep that opportunity? I think those are the two question marks going forward. But if he can sustain both, I think we could possibly see his potential fully on display. And remember, Joe, he is a upcoming free agent, so he's looking to ball out the cash out.
Yeah, the only thing I'm just curious about is, obviously his role and involvement. Obviously, Kenneth Gainwell didn't play in this game because of the rib injury he suffered the previous game, but Kenneth Gainwell, was the leader of the backfield in week one. After this performance, does it now DeAndre Swift, does it become his backfield and more so Gainwell's the two, the spell? But then, here we go. We still saw Boston Scott in this game. He left early with a concussion. I think Rashad Penny is absolutely just an afterthought at this point. He showed absolutely nothing after Boston Scott went out. So DeAndre Swift, this was a great game, great performance, and really Philly, relied on that run game because to start that game, Jalen Hurts did not look good and took a little bit for that passing game to get rolling. But I'm just keeping a close eye on how they're going to utilize these guys in the backfield.
Well, yeah, and I think at this point he's probably a flex play consideration. That's where I probably would put him. But again, like we're talking about a true test, we're only 2 weeks in the NFL season. He's going to be going up against the Bucks defense, which their interior defensive line, led by Vita Vea, I think is very, very good. So we'll see how well he does against them next week.
Yeah, it's a test, and obviously look out to see who's the leader in touches. I would assume that Kenneth Gainwell potentially could be back in this game, but if Swift is all alone, we'll see if it was just a product of playing Minnesota, or is it truly different when he's got an opportunity to play against probably the best offensive line in football.
So are you enjoying this video so far? Well, if you are, show your support to our new channel by hitting the subscribe button and liking this video. We'll be creating videos all NFL season long, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store. So Joe, let's transition over to the losers of week 2. Who are your duds?
Yeah, so my first stud, I'm going with quarterback Justin Fields. He was 16 of 29 for 211 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Surprisingly, only had 4 carries for 3 yards, but he did get a rushing touchdown. He also fumbled twice in this game, but didn't count against him because the Bears were able to recover them. Fields, I was really looking for him to make this next step and grow within this Bears offense. Getting DJ Moore to this offense, was expecting more out of the passing game from Justin Fields, but so far to this point, we just haven't seen it. And then also, teams are really seeming the key on that his running ability because we haven't been able to see him really escape and have those big rushing gains that we all relied on in fantasy, for his floor and a high ceiling essentially. But I'm definitely concerned about him going forward. He was a guy that like I said, I thought he was going to make a stride this year in his passing ability, but the Bears just don't look like they have an identity right now. They really can't run the ball. Justin Fields is holding onto the ball way too long. Seems like he's confused and not sure where to go with the ball. But on the plus side, it was nice to see him get DJ Moore involved this week, and he had a decent game.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I had my doubts on Justin Fields.
I know
You
you
knew
did.
that, which is kind of confirmed at this point. I would have thought that DJ Moore would have been more involved. You started seeing him be more of a vocal point this game, but it wasn't enough. And these opponents that they've had are not the best. Like Packers are okay, like that was they. I think they. I mean, I think he could have done better. I mean, you saw Desmond Ritter do at least pretty decent today, and I don't think Desmond Ritter is any good. So you've got that game, and then today with the Bucks, I don't know. I just felt like Bucks were good, but I feel like they could have definitely have been exposed. But yeah, I don't know what's going on over there. I think Eberflus might be getting the hack, but we might get ahead of ourselves here. But if you're gonna develop Justin Fields, you're gonna devote everything to him. You've got to be able to create an offensive system that's going to help him thrive. And like you said, at this point, it's they're completely lost.
Yeah, I guess I just thought, second year in the system, adding DJ Moore for more explosive plays in this offense, just expecting a step up from Justin Fields, and just haven't seen it thus far. And it just seems like the strides that they made at the end of last year and that, the plus games that he had, it's almost like they've reverted. And I don't know what they're doing there in Chicago.
So my dud is quarterback Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, as they like to call him these days, because he's been so cold and he's not been very good. He had 41 attempts, 27 completions, 222 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Week 1, he was 14 for 31 for 82 yards with 0 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Now, Joe, I talked to you before the start of the season. I had my concerns about this calf injury. And lo and behold, we find out from the man himself on the press conference that he has aggravated his calf. I feel probably, who knows whether he'll play or not, but I think this is affecting this overall offense. I think that because he was not able to participate in training camp in the preseason, there is just no rhythm in this offense. I didn't think he was going to be this. I thought he could be just miss a few games, but kind of pick it back up. We saw what he did week 1 last year against the Steelers, and then they start humming back along. This offense is looking shaky. Mixon doesn't look as strong. Chase is always a great player, but I just don't understand what's wrong with this team. I'm concerned. I don't know if they're going to get. I think they will get back on track, but I don't know. I'm not liking what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, I think they'll get back on track. I think it's also tough that they're coming out of the gate with two divisional opponents back to back, that both teams kind of know how to play them and what they're good at. And ironically, he didn't aggravate that calf injury until later in the game on that last T. Higgins touchdown. But we started to see kind of them get into a somewhat of a rhythm. Mixon looked fine in the game. They just didn't use him enough as well. But it's kind of the way that it's always been. It just they just fall in love with the passing game, regardless if it's working or not, and they just go with it. But it'll be interesting to see how Burrow responds. We saw him immediately go over with the massage gun after he hit that pass and kind of jumped up to pass that ball to T. Higgins and then pulled it up and got on the massage gun. So we'll see how he does.
Well, they're going to be playing the LA Rams on Monday night. So the Rams have been hot. So that'll be really interesting to see what happens. They gave the 49ers a run for their money.
They did. I was surprised. I thought that the 49ers might just throttle the Rams similarly to what they did to the Steelers, but they didn't. And, Rams really held their own, and I was pretty surprised by that.
I think it's a must-win game for the Bengals, though. You can't go down 0-3 with that division as tough as it is with Baltimore. We'll find out how Steelers and Cleveland do. But I don't know. I just don't. I think you can go down 0-3.
Yeah, it definitely would be tough for them. I still think the Rams are winnable game for them, but they definitely got to figure something out on offense and start getting this thing humming again. So my second dud of the week here is going to be tight end Kyle Pitts. He caught 2 of 5 targets for 15 yards, and I was kind of the opinion I was going to kind of wait and see with Kyle Pitts, wait for the Falcons to throw more than 18 times in a game where they didn't just have a easy cruise control win and rely on the run game like they were able to against, the Panthers in week 1. Well, this was the game. Ritter threw it 32 times compared to the 18 times in week 1, almost doubled the amount of pass attempts. And lo and behold, a guy that didn't see a single target in week 1, Jonnu Smith, out targeted Pitts, catching 4 of 6 targets for 47 yards. Not only did he out target him, also outproduced him and outgained him. So this is really concerning to me. I don't know what to do. I'm really not a Pitts owner. I've been out on him, but if you are a Pitts owner, I don't know what you do with him. Uh, you know, he's definitely not just an easy start tight end every week for where you got him.
I'll tell you what, I am so glad that I fade this guy. I want nothing to do with him. Not because I don't like the player. I just don't like his usage. So I got burned last year. I went all in on him. And I said, I'm not doing that again until I see some radical changes. And we're not seeing any of that. So for Jonnu Smith to have a higher, have a better game than him is just absolutely nuts. So I'm with you. Here's the tough part. If you drafted Pitts, maybe you had to reach for him. I don't know, right? Because people have been maybe off the train with him. But if you got him, it's almost like you have to play him because he's got that
Right.
ceiling. So but the more than likely, based on what he's doing, he's going to underperform. So you're in a horrible pickle as a fantasy manager because he has the potential to go off. So you feel like you have to play him. But every time you play him, he's going to underperform. It's a horrible situation.
Yeah, yeah, it truly is. It's a situation I'm glad I'm not in. And we all know Arthur Smith, doesn't care about our fantasy lineups. He's just I mean, they're 2-0. They're just gonna keep doing what they're doing. They're winning games. He doesn't care how it happens. The one thing I was looking for Pitts this week was at least in week 1, they hit him for an explosive play. But here we are, like he had 2 catches after average 7.5 yards per catch on his 2 catches for 15 yards. I think he at least had a 30-yarder in week 1. So we're not even seeing like the explosive plays, that you would be looking for with the type of talent he has.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, the only saving grace he has is that he's a tight end, right? I mean, the
Right.
tight ends are not usually they're not consistent and they're usually not high scorers. So throw a dartboard, hope that he goes off. But I'm with you. I mean, Arthur Smith has been able to do really well as a head coach. His offensive scheme that he has, this doesn't rely on having to pepper, his weapons with a ton of targets. So I don't know what to do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we even saw Drake London rebound this week with a relevant fantasy week and got a touchdown. And really, that's all you'd want to see Pitts do is catch a touchdown because in this day and age, the tight end position, like if your guy can somehow just catch a touchdown, he's going to be one of the top tight ends of the week.
You know? So my second dud is a guy who I was down on before. You're probably going to disagree with this, but it's running back Breece Hall. The Dallas Cowboys shut down the Jets offense. I'm starting to believe this will be a continual trend for the Zach Wilson-led offense for the New York Jets. Although Breece Hall had a very good game against the Buffalo Bills, Breece Hall received a whopping 4 carries for 9 yards. Hall is sharing the backfield with Dalvin Cook and Michael Carter, to my surprise, who has come in on some third downs. Fantasy managers, I think, will have been disappointed by his performance thus far, and I believe those owners should buckle up because I don't think it's going to get much better. Because, like I told you, Joe, he's not going to get the volume. I understand he's explosive. He was very explosive with Buffalo, but if I'm a Jets fan, I'm ripping my hair out because this is the one bright spot on this team right now. And why they're not giving him more carries is beyond me. So at this point, he only has a limited amount of volume to get you something. He has the talent to do it, but it's going to be very frustrating because it's going to be feast or famine.
Yeah, I mean but I think fantasy managers know you play him because of his high ceiling. He doesn't really have a high floor to rely on, he's definitely a boomer bust player. I think he's gonna probably. I think he could boom more often than he does bust, though. This was just a tough matchup. You knew it was going to be tough sledding against this Cowboys team. You saw the potential what he could. That's what I mean. I don't think fantasy managers are going to be disappointed thus far because he had an amazing week one against the Bills, and he showed, right off the bat in one game that he's still, if he was fully healthy, he hits the home run, doesn't get caught from behind in the Bills game, or if Garrett Wilson just blocks the guy, he's got a touchdown. But that's besides the point. But just seeing that explosive play happen in week one, I think it keeps fantasy managers, going. But I also think to the later in the year is when you're going to see more of Brees Hall's, bigger games.
Let me ask you a question. As a
Yeah.
fantasy manager right now, I'm going to give you the choice. You can have either one of them. Would you rather have Brees Hall or Brian Robinson for the rest of the season?
Oh, I'd rather Brees Hall for sure.
Oh, no way. I'll take Brian Robinson all day
Well,
long.
just because he had a game against the Broncos, I mean, come on now.
He's getting a ton of volume. Antonio
I
Gibson's an
I don't care
afterthought.
about your stupid volume. Brees Hall has much more talent than Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson is just going to run into the line for 2 to 3 yards more often than he is not. Where Brees Hall's got this opportunity to get a touchdown anytime he touches the ball, and Brian Robinson does not have that luxury. And I think eventually they might get Antonio Gibson going on. That's really my biggest surprise about the Commanders' offense is the fact that they're not willing to really use him at all.
I understand that, but to me, I can't see why you could say that. That doesn't make sense to me.
We're only 2 weeks in. We don't even have enough data for trends, and everybody knew Brees Hall going up against the Jets was a tough man, or the Cowboys. It's going to be a tough matchup. Low expectations. I don't know. I don't. I'm not. Even though yes, it was a dud, but it was an expected dud. I still think better things are to come for Brees Hall.
Okay, but no Aaron Rodgers in the picture. That changes the game.
He
They
didn't
can
have
stack the box.
Aaron Rodgers was hurt for the Bills, and he still broke off those runs. That was with Zach Wilson at quarterback. I just think it was really the matchup, and I think there's better matchups to come for Brees Hall and the Jets here.
But see, you've got guys like McCaffrey who have volume and explosion. You want both. He doesn't have the volume.
I know, but McCaffrey's don't grow on trees. That's why he's one of the top picks in the first round. I mean, it just doesn't happen, especially now in this day and age. Like everybody's running back by committee. The 49ers backfield and McCaffrey, that's an anomaly right now.
Brian Robinson will finish with more fantasy points than Brees Hall in the 2023 season. Mark it down.
I don't think so.
Well, with that, that's our winners and losers from week 2. We gave you a recap of our studs and duds. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.